Hello, my name is Pam Hayes at Hayes Sewing Machine Company of Wilmington, Delaware, and welcome back to our creative videos. Today we're going to be talking about the Kimberbell Citrus and Sunshine, and there's a lot of different in the hoop projects that you can do, and today we're going to focus on the one that is called Sweet Slice Coin Purses. So it's going to be this one right here, and you see a big picture of it in the front. If you haven't worked with their particular designs before, lovely. They do, and Kimberbell does a great job. They do a good job with your instructions. You're going to find that it's on a USB stick for this particular one. And I would encourage you to either do the directions on a piece of paper, print them out, or have them on a tablet, because there's a lot of different steps to it, none of which are hard, but it's always so much easier if you actually have, the instructions. What a thought. All right, so at this point, it's going to tell you you need a 6 by 10 embroidery field. So your hoop needs to be 6 by 10. So if you have a machine that will do smaller stuff, maybe you have a friend that has a larger embroidery field. So this particular one here, we're going to focus on the coin purse part of it today. So we need a stabilizer that is a cutaway. And this one is cutaway done by Sulky. It's called Soft and Sheer. And one layer is sufficient. So we are going to place this onto my machine. The format that I'm working with today, I'm working with a Baby Lock model called the Pathfinder, and it's a PES format, and that is one of the formats that's on that USB stick. They do multiple formats, so I'm sure you can find something that'll work for your machine. All right, so when you load it on, we're going to take, and we're basically just going to do our first step, which is straight stitches. You're going to have 2 circles. Remember, we're working on the back and the front. So you're going to have 2 circles in our hoop. So you have the one, and then the one that it's doing now is going to be the front. So what it's doing for the zipper part of it. And you'll notice it doesn't complete the circle for the one in the front, and that's good. So we're cool. All right, in our instructions, they want you to have, and they'll give you all the dimensions that you need. I think this particular one is 5 by 10. Batting. This is going to give our coin purse a little bit of shape to it. And you'll see what I'm doing is I'm just simply lining this up, and I'm putting it right over top of my stitching. And then step number 2 is it's going to stitch these down. And excuse me just one second, we're going to see what's going on here. And all else fails, we're going to rethread the machine. Alrighty. Back up, and I'm going to back up a color So I'm going to go back to the beginning of my color. So remember, what it's going to do, it did the placement for us. Then we're going to put the batting over the top, and then it's going to stitch the batting down. Then at that point, I didn't bother to tape this on, the batting. She does suggest to do that in the instructions. I just kind of sit with it and it's fine. But if you're kind of new to doing it in the hoop project, probably wouldn't hurt if you put a little bit of tape down. And again, the tape is going to make sure that it doesn't shift on you, and then the batting is going to give your coin purse just a little bit of heft to it. We want to have a little bit of heft, but not something as stiff as, say, foam. Foam would be too stiff. Alright, so it's going to stitch around, and then at that point, we're going to trim around the batting. So we want to get rid of all the extra stuff. Something to be aware of, I love these curved applique scissors. They're great when you're working with something in the hoop. So we're going to line this up. Always try to keep it as flat as possible, and you're going to trim all the way around. So try to keep the blade down. Remember, the curve is there to help you. And we're going to trim all the way around. Now you'll notice there's an opening. Just keep on going around it. The opening there is because that's where our zipper is going to go. So it'll make sense in just a second. So again, we're going to trim all the way around. Again, trying to do this on a flat surface. If anybody's sewing room is like mine, sometimes flat surfaces are a premium. So a lot of times I'll have a clipboard that I can put on my lap, kind of a bigger clipboard. That will work. We're going to line this up. And then we're going to be on the third color on the screen, and what that's going to do is actually going to sew a rectangle, and you'll see what I mean. This is going to help us for placement for our zipper. So just take a look. So you can see how it did a long rectangle. Now at that point, we're going to go and we're going to trim again. Just the rectangle. Try not to at this point get the stabilizer. You want to make sure you're only trimming batting. And don't worry about that little bit. That'll be just fine. Alrighty. Now at this point, so you can see that it has sewn and we have trimmed. We're going to take and we're going to put our zipper in. Now they call for a 7-inch zipper, but I have one that's a little longer, just one of my bulk zippers I have here. Do make sure you test it to make sure it works. I have put in a broken zipper at one point, and boy, you feel so smart when you do that. Okay, so make sure you do that, and then you're going to go and we're going to tape the zipper in place. So we line it up, and that's what the rectangle is for. So we make sure that it's positioned, and I put a little bit of tape going across, and it's very important. The zipper tab is, first of all, up, and second of all, to the left. And never fear, the instructions will also tell you. Okay? So you know exactly what you need to do. So we're going to line this up. Put that down. Again, make sure that everything is hunky-dory. And it's now going to stitch and go right over top. And you'll see, because it's actually putting the zipper in, it's doing it like a triple stitch. So it's going to be nice and strong. Do not use a metal zipper, because at this point, you'll see what I mean in just a second. If you put in a metal zipper for teeth, it's going to be stitching over top of this. So take a look. Okay, so watch what it does. It sews backwards, and it's going to stitch right over the top. Metal toothed zipper would not work very well for you. So again, we're going to go right over the top. All right, yay, that one's done. Now, at this point, take the hoop off the machine. And that's something that you are going to, if you're doing it in the hoop project, you're going to be taking the hoop on and off a lot. We want to remove the tape, and any type of tape will work fine. I'm just going to put it on the table so it makes my life a little easier. I'm just using Scotch tape, but you could use cloth tape. It really doesn't matter. The whole point is that it's going to hold it for you. All right. Looks pretty good. Okay. Now, we're going to flip it over, so we're looking at the back side, and we need to open or cut this section, which is behind. So just the stabilizer behind the zipper. Think about it. Even if we open the zipper, if we don't have this gone, it's going to be really difficult to get things in and out. Alrighty, that step is done. And then now we're going to be putting the front. Okay, so we have taken, we've trimmed it away. This is the front of our hoop. So we have, this is the color I was going to do for the outside. Bigger piece, smaller piece. The bigger piece, you're going to put right sides down, like so, making sure it's even. Okay, in other words, don't line it up like that. You want to make sure it's even. And you're going to line it up with basically the top of the zipper tape. Alrighty. And you'll take a look on your machine, and you'll see that it's just a straight stitch, and you're kind of figuring, why is that? It'll be obvious in just a second. So this part, I don't bother taping too much. It's going to stitch, and look at that, perfect stitching all the way across. All right, so now I'm going to flip this. So watch what I do here. See how I take this, and look at that, it's perfect right along the top of the zipper. Give it a good press, I do it with my fingers. Remember, add steam. Breathe on it. There you go. That'll add steam. All right, and now I will put a little bit of tape down just to hold everything. And it's going to do a straight stitch, and it's going to sew the top half of the circle and all of the other circle. And you'll see what I mean. So see how it's giving the shape? So it's holding that down. Okay, then watch it move to that lonely circle we haven't done much with yet, and it's going to stitch the back side of that. And isn't that clever? That's why we have 2 circles in our hoop. And it's going to stitch around. Alrighty. Now, she doesn't want you to trim the fabric, and it's pretty obvious. Take a look. Do not trim fabric. In yellow. I love that. But if you have any tape, remove the tape. So I like it when she's very specific. So any tape that we have on there, we're going to move that. Now, the next bit is going to be the bottom section. So we have this nicely lined up, and it'd be really nice to do that. So remember, we need to flip it down, don't we? Okay, so if you put it here, it's not going to be correct. So when you line it up, you're going to go at the bottom here, and we're going to have it line up with the zipper tape. And can you see how I'm lining that up so it's even with this edge? Lower the foot and hit start. All right, so we have that sewn. Okay, so see how now it pulls it down. Pretty clever. I can follow the instructions. It's always amazing to me that somebody figured this out to start with. All right, I'm not worried about the tape. We're just going to stitch. It's a little bit, so I'm just kind of holding it down. But isn't that clever? Now, the only thing that I did not do, and she did it in the pattern piece. See the white in the picture? That's kind of glitter. I'm not really a glitter girl, so I'm just ignoring that. But you do want to sew it. So you'll see that it will tell you, okay, this is where we were. Change the color, and you're going to stitch the pith placement line. Wow, say that 5 times fast, right? But that's basically the glitter. But we do want to sew that. Even though technically we're not doing it, I think it's nice. It kind of adds a little something to it. And it's going to give us our stitching line later on. So it's just going to hold everything nicely down. Again, I didn't bother to put it on. So it's going to go from here, and then it's going to jump up to the other side. And just think of it as really pretty quilting. And it's going to go and stitch to the other side. All right, so that is done. And if you were doing the glitter, you would trim 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outside edges. And they are nice and specific in the instructions. Say you're going to trim, make sure you get, open up over the zipper, and you want to trim about 1/8 of an inch. All right. Now at this point, we're going to go, and we have 3 different colors that we're going to use for the slices. So can you see that there's like the sections that you see in there? So there's 3 different ones. You basically have a light, medium, and a dark. And I have chosen a white grunge and a little darker solid, and then a darker grunge. So just make sure that they are nice and flat. And we're going to choose the white, the lightest one first. So we're going to line it up, make sure that you have right side up. And I'm missing one step though. We're going to let it do its placement. So you see how it's going to do its placement? And then we're going to put the fabric over top. The fabric totally covers it, so if you forget the placement bit, it's not really going to hurt it too bad. Oh, and it's doing one more stitching. So we'll really have a defined quilting. This would be for the glitter, so it's still on the glitter. Now, I am constructing the entirety of my design with my embroidery thread. And I'm using a single embroidery thread throughout this entire piece. I just like how the orange looks. But be aware that if you want to, use basic color first, like when it does all of the tack down, you could do that. But I just find it to be as easy just on this small project, just to keep the same color. And I am using the same color top and bottom as well. Alrighty. And we're doing one final bit, the bottom section. Alrighty, and it's going to stitch all the way across. And it's great for reinforcement. Okay. Now at this point, it's going to do our segments that we're going to do. So you'll see that it's going to do the wedges. When I did this one, which is one of my sample ones I did first, you'll notice I did it with a really kind of bright fabric. You'll see though, I just left the wedges in there. So you don't have to have this as being a particular this color for doing citrus, but I just thought the mosaic little pattern on here was really nice. And I just left the design stitch, but I didn't bother with doing the fabric for the applique. And that's a nice little piece. After each of the appliques, when I put the fabric down, you're going to trim all the way around. You're going to leave 1/8 of an inch. Something with this particular design, if you're doing, this is raw edge applique. So you see here there's not a satin stitch. This is actually raw edge applique. But over top is going to be vinyl. So you don't have to worry about it ever fraying. But be aware, that's why I wasn't doing vinyl on this one. You can see why I just stitched them and I didn't add the fabric to it. So again, you can, what's lovely with embroidery designs, you can do whatever you wish, but be aware that this is raw edge applique, and why it works is because it's going to have vinyl, clear vinyl over top. So what's nice is the step that we're doing here, placement, and then covering and putting our fabric down and trimming. It's going to be the same on the three, and you'll see what I mean. So we have placement, right? So we did placement, we put our fabric down. Again, you can by all means tape this if you want. I feel comfortable just sitting with it and making sure it doesn't do anything strange. This is where if you wanted it to be a lighter color, you wanted it to match more of the white, this would be a perfect time to change your color. It's all whatever your preference is. One of the reasons why I'm doing it brighter today is so you can see it easier. And you see how it's doing the triple stitch. So it has 2 on the bottom. It's going to jump over. And then it's going to do the 2 at the top, and then it's going to do more on the back. Now, if you wanted to, because they gave you the stitching line, you could also do these individual colors if you wanted to. Again, your little coin purse, by all means do whatever you wish. The advantage of doing one sheet, it just makes life a little easier for you. But if you have only smaller sections for doing your applique, remember you could lay these down. And if you are going to be doing that, do like spray adhesive, or I would also consider taping. If you have very small pieces, you might want to consider doing the taping. Alright, so again, it's done this front one, and then it's going to go and do the back. So once it's done sewing, I'm going to take it off the machine, the hoop off the machine, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch. And what's nice, it's the same steps when you go to do the medium color as well as the dark color. It's exactly the same steps. Alright, and we have one final segment to do in the light, so it's going to stitch that. And I'm set, ready to go. Now at this point, I'm going to take this off of the machine. So remember, always keep the hoop, the project in the hoop. But you see how I'm not trimming particularly close, about 1/8 of an inch. So see, I'm leaving a little bit in there. And then I'm going to trim all the way around, and I'll see you back here after I've sewn the other 2 segments. Okay? Alrighty. Now, at this point, you'll see that I have done all of my segments. So I've done my light, my medium, and my dark. Now, we want to go and we want to sew the seeds. You'll see in the picture, right in this section, she has sewn decorative seeds. So, I am going to change and do kind of a creamy color for that. So I'm going to thread up my machine for that. And we're going to stitch this section next. So remember, it's going to have, not in every single section, but it's going to go and jump around on us. So it's just a kind of a nice little highlight. And it's going to take about 1 minute to sew this out, so it's no big deal. Alrighty, so as this is finishing up, this is now where you're going to take the opportunity to look at your appliques. Do I want to trim them down a little bit more? Do I want to, reshape any of the edges? This is the time to decide that, because in a second we're going to be putting the clear vinyl over top. And once that happens, it's pretty much as it is. So we're just going to let it finish up its sewing. It should be on my last seed. So you want to trim up any jump threads that you may have. This is a time to take a look to see if you like how the appearance is. Alright, so I'm going to make sure you rethread. If you want to change it back, we're going to rethread it back to my orange thread. And remember, we're going to take a look-see and see if I like how everything is going. Trim up any final edges. Something that you think, that's a bit too wide. Alrighty. And just kind of blow on it, or just make sure that everything is going. Alright. Now, we're going to take and we are going to place our clear vinyl. And I know it's so hard to see, but it's a clear vinyl. So we're going to take and we're going to place this over the top. One advantage of clear vinyl, you can see if you're covering stuff that you want. And we're going to stitch the clear vinyl down. And like I said, just want to make sure we get. Alright. It's going to basically stitch around the segments. And then it's going to stitch around, and because it's doing that, it's going to be stitching around the edges. Alright, so we're going to let it do its thing. So you can see it's stitching all around the segments. And if you see that I was having a little bit of trouble, sometimes with the clear vinyl, it can kind of hold on to the thread a little bit more. That's not unusual. This is going through a lot of tough layers. So you definitely want to sit with it. And it's going to do the top segment. And we're just going to rethread. I'm using a size 90-14 needle when I'm doing this. Remember, we're going through several layers of fabric. We're going through the vinyl. We're going through the batting. So I wouldn't use too light of a needle. It takes about 5 minutes to sew this particular section out. This is probably the longest. But remember, it's doing all the work for you, so it's nice. And then we have to sew around the other pieces. Now remember, this is the step that the vinyl is the step that I did not do on this one. Remember, this one, it was just kind of my trial run. I did my stitching of the segments, but I did not have any vinyl. So if you want something that's a little bit more flexible and it just does a nice job for you, and you have where you can put your coins, or you give it to a little kid all their treasures, they can put into that. And we're just going to let it finish stitching it up. Looks like we're on our last segment here. All right, so now what it's going to do, we are going to trim around. So you've seen that we've done the segments, we've stitched those, and we want to trim all the way around, and we want to trim out the zipper. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to trim out in between the segments. So you see how the dotted line, we're just going to trim all the way around. So to do that, we're going to take this off a little bit, and we're going to trim around the segments, or so trim around, but not cutting it through. Alrighty. And then we just are going to go around the circle for the top. All right, so now at this point, we have done, just want to round that out a little bit. All right, that looks good. All right, so now what we want to do is we have done the clear vinyl, and yes, the clear vinyl is nice. It gives it a little bit of a shine. We're going to take and we're going to flip this to the back side. We have to put a lining in. So we're going to take and we're going to pin the lining. They had already told us to press 1/2 inch down. So we're going to put this on the top. And you basically want it to be really near the zipper teeth, and we're going to stitch this down. So before we do that, remember we need to put some tape down so it doesn't move on us. Alright, so we have everything that's looking good. Remember that was on the back side of the hoop. So we're going to slide this in. I like to check to make sure everything's okay. And it's going to stitch going around tacking it down, and we're going to stitch going around the edge. I just noticed my needle came unthreaded, so we're just going to do that. They're going to have securing stitches on the side, so you'll see what I mean. It's going to do securing stitch, just a straight stitch along the edge. That way nothing kind of does anything weird. And it's going to do the same thing on the other side. So it's going to hold it for us so it doesn't do anything that it shouldn't. Alrighty. So we take this off. I want you to take a look to see how it's stitched. And then it's stitched around. Now we're going to do the same thing on the underneath side. So we're going to take and we're going to stitch. I'm just seeing if I could reuse this tape here. Looks like I can. Okay, and we're going to basically line it up so it's on the bottom. Okay, so at this point we have it done. We're going to put our hoop back onto our machine. Make sure again your zip's out of the way. And it's going to do the same thing for the bottom. So we have the front at this point lined. Alrighty, so the front is lined. So at this point, we want to take, and after it sews the securing stitches, we're going to take it off of the machine and just make sure everything's okay. It's easier to correct it now than later. Alrighty. So now at this point, again, I take it off the machine, and yes, everything is looking a-okay. And I'm going to take the tape off so that is not in the way anymore. Now, you need to stitch what they call alignment stitches. And I'm just keeping the color that I have on here. And there's going to be two of them. There's going to be a set here, one there, and one on the opposite side. And then it wants to do the same thing on the front. This is going to help us when we go to sew this, the front to the back. Alrighty. Now, this is the very important part. You'll see how we're on step 43. It was stitched the alignment marks, and you see that we've done that. I love how she makes this really big. Look at the front, open zipper 3/4 of the way. So it's trying to let us know that we need to open this up. So there's 3/4 of the way. You don't want to go all the way down because then the tab will get in the way, but 3/4 is good. At this point, you want to stitch, or we want to cut. So let me show you in the instructions. So literally, we're going to have a big hole in after we've trimmed this around. So we're going to trim on the blue line. It's basically going to be 1/4 of an inch outside the final straight stitch. And we don't want to cut the alignment, the things we've just sewn, to make this go all in. So, I need to do this so you can see it. So there is our stitching right there. And we're going to take and we're going to be 1/4 of an inch beyond that. And we want to make sure we don't cut those nice alignment lines either. And we're just going to cut all the way around. All right, so just as I promised, a big old hole. All right, and then we have the front bit. We have the back. Okay, we've trimmed it, but we haven't destroyed the marking. Okay, our little placement alignment marks. Now, once we have this big hole, you're going to still keep it on the back, and you're going to notice those alignment lines. Okay, we are going to take and we are going to put, yes, I'm not kidding, thumbtacks. So either go to the office supply store or go to your drawer, and literally we're going to push that through on our alignment marks. Okay, we're going to be flipping this, so we need to put some tape down so we don't lose the thumbtacks. Okay, there you go. Thumbtack pointing through, thumbtack pointing through. You're going to be looking at the right side of the frame, and you want to line up the thumbtacks with the tacks that we had here and here. And I'm sorry if you can't see at the moment. I will hold this up so you can see it. Okay. Thumbtack coming through, and alignment. So we're all good. What we're going to do is this time we are going to tape, and then we want to make sure that we remove the thumbtacks. That is kind of the important part of this. So we're going to tape this. Again, I'll show you what I mean here. Sorry, it's out of camera view. Can't tape and hold it up at the same time. Okay. So I've taped it down. We now want to go on the back side, and we're going to get those thumbtacks out of the way. Needle and thumbtacks don't work very well together. All right. We're going to basically be stitching this down. And I just want to double check that everything looks good. It does. All right. And we're just going to stitch. Alrighty, we have stitched. Now we're going to be on our final step. So we are going to place our material. Remember, we've lined the front. Now we have to line essentially what's going to be the back. And we put this on. You're going to make sure you're going to have right sides down or wrong sides up. Depends on how you view it. Again, we're putting tape down on. And I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. Okay, so I've placed my tape on the edges. I'm going to slide this in, and it's going to stitch around one more time. And basically this is putting the lining on. It's going to leave an opening, so it's not going to stitch all the way, because we need to have something to turn. And that little happy sound you hear is letting us know we're done. All right, I'm going to take this. Now it's perfectly good to take everything out. Okay, and this is what it should look like on the back side. So we're going to take and we're going to trim basically 1/4 inch all the way around. Getting rid of all the unsightly things. Now on this side, tough to see, so we're just going to go and we'll look at it from the other side so we can see our stitching line. Everything looks good. Now we want to take and we want to cut a little bit into the seam. That way it'll make it a little easier to turn. So again, and we're not going to do it like near the tape. All right. So at this point, we're just going to take and turn this around. It'll be a bit stiff. Don't worry about that. Because remember, we have the vinyl in here. All right. So we see this, and then we think, oh no. But remember, you have to turn it one more time. Now, at this point, you could go and you could stitch this edge. What I did on this guy is I just kind of laid it over top, and I just zigzagged it. You need it to close it because you don't want your coins or whatever you're going in to really go inside your lining. That won't help. So we're going to turn this around. This is a finished project. It's about 4 inches. So remember, you have your, and isn't that cute? Isn't that lovely? Alrighty. So we have our finished project. I'm going to go back in and stitch that, but I just wanted you to see what it's going to look like. It's amazing what they can do as an in the hoop project. Alrighty.
Hi! We just wanted to let you know that for the next 2 weeks we're going to have a little bit different setup than our creative videos. My dad was interviewed by Evan, who is a college student, for a documentary. And so on the 17th, we will be airing that documentary. It's about like 15-20 minutes. And then the week after, which would be the 24th, he's going to do a video on the basics of machine maintenance. So we look forward to seeing you then. Bye.